Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Eruvin Daf Samachay. We're on the last line of Samach Daled Amud Beis. Says Gemara, Omer Rav Sheishis Mishuma Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Yochei lani lifter es kol ha'olam kulay min adin. I have the ability to exempt all of Klal Yisrael from judgment on account of their misdeeds. I can defend them. Miyayim shechar beis hamikdash v'ad achshav, for all their averis that they've committed from the day of the Churban up until today. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Lochein shimi nozois aniyah ushchuras v'loy miyayin. The pasuk is describing Klal Yisrael and Golus. They're poor and drunk not as a result of drinking wine, but as a result of their lack of clarity. They don't have the proper perspective. They don't have the clarity of mind. And therefore, says Rabbi Sheshis, in the name of Elazar ben Azariah, I can defend Klal Yisrael. I can say, well, they're not meant to be held accountable for their averis. They're like shikorim. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. On the top line, Yecholni lifter litoin al kol Yisrael f'nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Dovar sheyifteru kulon midinin asalavi. I have the ability to defend Klal Yisrael, to claim in defense of Klal Yisrael, look, they're drunk. Loimar shein shikorim ve'nitfasan al vaynam. Just like a drunkard, not held accountable. I can defend Klal Yisrael and present them in this light. They're shikorim and golus. They shouldn't be held accountable for their averis. Says the Gemara on the fourth line, Meisvei, is that so that a shikar, a person who's drunk, is not responsible? Shikar mekar mekach, whatever he purchases is valid. Umemkar memkar, likewise his sales are valid. Of avera sheish misa, misa naisa. If he commits avera that deserves misa, he gets misa. Malchus, if it deserves malchus, malchus naisa. Klolo shel davar. The rule of thumb is hareu ki pikech chol dvarav. Even a shikar is considered to be like a pikeach, like a person with perfect intelligence. He's perfectly responsible for everything that he does. There's one thing that is exempt from, which is tefillah. As we learned yesterday, tefillah requires kavanah, requires clarity of mind. He needs to have the ability to be oimid lifnei HaMelech, etc. So tefillah is one thing which a shikar is not chayav for. But everything else, he's considered to be a perfectly intelligent person, a bikeach, fully accountable. So what does it mean that he could defend Klal Yisrael on account of their averis because they're in a state of shichrus, drunkenness? Says the Gemara, that's exactly what he meant. He meant on account of tefillah. My yecholni lifter the kamar nami. When he said that I could protect them, I could exempt them, he meant midin tefillah, on account of the obligation to daven properly. So I can go and defend them. Look, you know why they're not doing it properly? Because they don't have the proper kavanah, proper clarity of mind, the intellectual capacity to do it properly. Let's see Rashi on the second line from the top. Midin tefillah. He's going to exempt them, protect them from a din of tefillah im doron oisan al shelo hayu mispalm kavana. If Klal Yisrael will be judged on account of the fact that not mispal properly with kavana, yochal ani lefoitron, I have the ability to protect them and to exempt them from that claim. I'll say, look, they're shikorim. They didn't have the proper clarity, the presence of mind to apply themselves properly to tefillah. This was the practice of Gedolei Yisrael throughout the generations, to be Melamed Chus Klal Yisrael. The classic thing is of Rabbi Yehuda, who used to always petition Hashem on account of Klal Yisrael and Melamed Chus on Yisrael. There's a fascinating story that took place with the Chavetz Chaim in his yeshiva. He had a yeshiva in Radin. So apparently it was the custom on Rosh Hashanah. In the afternoon they would get together and dance and sing the Kavod Yom Tov. And so it happens that one year Chavetz Chaim was there, and he singled out two boys from amongst the group and pulled them into the middle and personally danced with them. And after they were done, somebody asked him why specifically these boys. He said, I'll tell you why. Today's Rosh Hashanah. And Rav Levi Mitzvah Barditchev, he was known for his limit zchus on Klal Yisrael. He would petition Hashem on behalf of Klal Yisrael to be malamed schus on Hashem's children. And these two boys are his grandchildren, his grandsons. So I wanted to dance with them specifically to be ma'orer, to generate the schus of their grandfather, who used to be malamed schus on Klal Yisrael. Today's Rosh Hashanah. We need that Hashem should have a favorable view on Klal Yisrael. So by being ma'orer the schus of their grandfather, Rabbi Yitzchak, who used to do that, who used to be malamed schus on Klal Yisrael, I was hoping that it would positively affect the din of Rosh Hashanah, and Klal Yisrael would be granted a good year. So this was the derech to Melamed Schus, and Lezer Nazari says, look, Klal Yisrael don't have the ability, the capacity in Golus to daven properly, and this is going to be a good limit schus on them. Continues the Gemara, getting back to the shikar, who's fully accountable and responsible for his actions, for his transactions. Omar Rabbi Chanina, lo yishanu. That's only said elish leigia l'shichrus shalut. If this drunk person is somewhat drunk, but he's not at the point that he's totally unaware of what's going on, like the shichrus, the state of shichrus that Lot was in when he was in the cave with his daughters, so then he's considered to be held accountable. But once he gets to that point where he's totally unaware of his everything, Pata Miklum, then indeed he is exempt from anything, and he's not held accountable, and his transactions are not valid. Continues the Gemara. Amar Chanina, getting back to the shikar with tefillah, we know that a shikar is not meant to daven. Says Rabbi Chanina, Kol ha-mepik mogen. Mepik means he passes over. He bypasses. Mogen means tefillah, mogen Avram. So he skips over tefillah. He avoids davening. B'shas gava, at a time of gava, of haughtiness, of shichrus, when he doesn't have the ability to submit himself to Hashem. So he conducts himself properly. He avoids davening the way he's meant to do. He shouldn't think that he's missing out on the opportunity. Actually, just the opposite. They close up, they seal away misfortunes from him. Meaning he's zoich, the fact that he avoids davening, and at a time where he's not meant to daven, then he's actually zoich to be protected. Shenemar gava afike moginim sagur choisam tsar. So gava means when he's in a state of gava, of shichrus. Afike means that he passes over, he bypasses, he skips over Maginim, which is the Magen Avram Tefillah. He doesn't daven. What happens? Sagur choisam. It's closed up, it's sealed away. The tsar, the misfortunes, is protected from these things. My mashma dahai afik lishna davurihu. Who do we find that the term afik is referring to going over, passing over? Achai bogdu chemoy nochal kafik necholom yavoiru. So chafik necholim, like the passing through of the necholim of the streams, yavoiru, they will pass through. So we see that afik means to pass through, to pass over. So the point is that a person who is careful and treats tefillah with respect and avoids davening when he's not supposed to, he actually benefits from it. He shouldn't think that he lost out. Just the opposite. There's a similar Gemara in Brachos towards the end that speaks about a person who avoids learning Torah at a time where he's unclean, where it's inappropriate to learn. And Torah says, the Gemara says he actually earns arichas yamim, marichan lo yama v'shnoisav. Same concept. A person doesn't think, well, I'm losing out the opportunity to learn. No, just the opposite. You'll have more days, more years added onto your life in the merit of treating Torah properly. So you'll have time to make up for all this lost time. Here as well, he misses davening because he's not supposed to daven. Hashem will protect him from misfortune. Rabbi Yechanan Amar. So Rabbi Yechanan is basically going to say the same thing, just in a little of a different angle. He says, Kol she'enoi mapik itmar. He learns that mapik means revealed. So, one who does not reveal himself, does not connect himself to tefillah, doesn't experience tefillah, doesn't daven. He's basically saying the same thing, but just in a different angle. that one who is not Meifik Mogim B'Shas Gavar, meaning he doesn't reveal the tefillah, he doesn't experience tefillah, doesn't daven at a time of Gava, so the same results, the saras are blocked away from him, because he had a different translation of the word Mafik. So according to Rabbi Chanina, Meipik means he passes over it, he skips it. According to Rabbi Yechon, Meipik means something revealed, something, he demonstrates it. So if he does not demonstrate tefillah, it means he doesn't daven at a time where it's inappropriate, when he's in a state of gava, of drunkenness, then he's protected from tzaras. My mashma dahai meipik lishna de gulu yehu. What do we find? This is Rabbi Yechon's version. What do we find that meipik means? It's referring to revealed and exposed. T'chsiv vayiro afike mayim vayigolu moistis tevel. So vayiro afike mayim. Afike is the revealing of the seas that will be seen. So we see that afike is related to revealed and seen and visibility. Okay, says the Gemara Michti, Kroi mashma bein lamar bein lamar. Both Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yechon are basically saying the same thing, and sourcing their version from the psukim, which indeed there's a connotation, there's a pasuk which indicates Rabbi Chanina's pshat, and there's another pasuk where the word meipik is applied in the context that Rabbi Yechon was referring to. So they both have proper sources, and they're both basically saying the same thing. A person who's a shikha should not daven. Is there any difference? My binaya. What is the difference between the two versions? Ikar binaya der Rav Sheshes. Actually, there is an afkamina regarding the custom of Rav Sheshes. The Rav Sheshes masar shinsei l'shami. Rav Sheshes, when he would drink a large quantity of wine, more than Revi'is, so you have to take a nap, a bit of a longer nap, because the short nap only alleviates the effect of a Revi'is of wine. But if it's more than that, you need a longer nap. So he would ask his Shami, his servant, to wake him up after a while. After you estimate that I've slept enough, wake me up so I can daven. So that's what Rav Sheshes used to do. It says that would be the point of contention between Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says that a person is not meant to expose tefillah, reveal tefillah, experience tefillah during a time of shichrus. But once the effect is gone, once he's slept enough, the servant can estimate, can determine when he slept enough. At that point, he's allowed to daven. That's fine. Whereas Reb Chanina, who says that a person is meant to bypass tefillah, skip over tefillah, that indicates that he's meant to wait it out. Wait until he wakes up on his own, in which case we know that the effect of the wine is completely gone, completely cleared up. Mar Islay Rav Sheshes. Rabbi Yechon would follow Rav Sheshes' custom, but Mar Leslie Rav Sheshes. Rav Chanina does not hold of this. He holds the person has to sleep it out, shouldn't be woken up before he wakes up on his own. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav. Kol shein datam yeshef azalav. If a person feels he doesn't have proper yeshiva das, doesn't have proper presence of mind, al yispal. He should not approach tefillah. Mishum shenemar ba'atzar al yer. At a time of distress, of discomfort, a person should not rule on a halachic shaila. And likewise, a person should not approach tefillah, which requires clarity. Now, it's interesting, Rashi says, Bodakti achar mikra zeh. I looked around, and I didn't find this pasuk anywhere in Tanakh. So Rashi says, maybe it's in Sefer Ben Sira, which was a collection of pearls of wisdom. It wasn't a Sefer of Chazal, it was a Sefer of Chachma. Perhaps that's where it comes from. And Tosfos actually says that we find Matzinu b'chama mekaymois shemevi hashas mikrois haksuvim b'Sefer Ben Sira. This is in Tosfos Maskal Batzar al Yere. You find many places in Chazal where this Sefer is actually quoted. So it's not a pasuk, but it's a quote from that Sefer. So at the time of tsar, when he's in distress, discomfort, he should not rule on halachos, and nor should he daven. Rabbi Chanina, b'yoyim derasach, during a day that he got upset, Leimatzli, he didn't daven. Amar, he said, Batsar al Yere Ksiv. Based on this quote, Batsar al Yere, at a time of tsar, I'm upset, I'm angry, I lost my clarity. Today is not a day to daven. It's interesting that the Mefarshim and Rishonim say that this applied in those days when their tefillah was really with true kavanah, true application and concentration. Therefore, they had these limitations and days where they didn't feel they were in full capacity, they didn't daven. But nowadays, it's okay, we could daven even if we're not top shape. And that's how it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch as well. This is similar to the Gemara in Brachas that we learned, that a chasan will refrain from Krishma on the first night, etc., because he can't have proper concentration. And we know that Bisman Hazeh, we don't follow that because we don't have that degree of concentration of kavanah that the circumstance wouldn't allow. That type of kavanah would be considered a interference. Therefore, Bisman Hazeh, certainly even Chasana would daven and say Krishma. Continues the Gemara. Mar ukva b'yom deshusa lavanafik l'beidina. Likewise, Mar ukva on a day of a storm. Yom deshusa is when the southerly wind would blow into strong wind. He wouldn't go out to the bezdin because he was concerned that perhaps due to the storm he wouldn't have the proper clarity to paskin properly. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Hilchas Abayit Tzelusa, Kiyom De'istana. A halacha, Torah, requires clarity. It requires das tzelula, says Rashi, the proper presence of mind. Kiyom De'istana, like this pleasant weather day, this day where the Ruach Tzfainis would blow. That was considered to be a pleasant day. So Torah requires pleasantness, good weather, presence of mind. So some Mefarshim say he's saying you need presence of mind, just like he's equating it to nice weather. You need to have Yishuv Adas, which is similar to nice weather, and some say it means practically you need nice weather to enhance a person's intellectual ability and aid and assist in his learning. There was once a beautiful spring day, and Rav Aaron Kotler walked outside and he says, "Wow, such nice weather." He said, today's such a gewaldige day for learning Torah. That's how he approached it. Nice weather equals better learning. Amar Abaye, Amr li aim, if my caretaker, Abaye was a Yosem, so Aim wasn't actually his mother, it was his caretaker. If she would have given me a job, if she would tell me, Karev Kutcha, pass over the dip, Loi Tanoi, I wouldn't be able to learn properly. Even if I would just be asked to do a minor chore, it would already affect my learning, my concentration. Amarava, ikuratztan kina letanoi. If a louse bites me, I can't learn properly. It interferes with my concentration. The point here is not that they wouldn't learn if this happened. The point here is that a person is meant to realize, how easily affected he is, how fragile he is, and do his utmost to avoid being distracted and inviting these type of situations, because he should know, these things can impair concentration. Mar Brei de Ravina of the Imei, so the mother of the Mar, the son of Ravina, prepared for him Zayin money, 7 changes of clothes, Zayin Yomi for 7 days, in order to avoid kinim. He shouldn't have experienced lice that wouldn't interrupt his learning. You know why Hashem created nighttime? For sleep. So that we sleep, we get enough rest, and come morning we're well rested, we're able to focus and concentrate on learning. In fact, there's a famous Taz who writes, I looked around, I've seen, from experience, those who pushed themselves and deprived themselves of sleep. I think they're gaining because they're hopping around, learning a lot of Torah, but in the long run, their ability, their intellectual ability and mental abilities get impaired, and they can't really concentrate properly. He says, I found from my own experience, if you sleep properly and you get a good night's sleep, you're well rested in the morning, he says your learning is so much better quality and more meaningful and lasting, and the person's memory is enhanced, etc. So he advocates that a person should take care of himself properly, try to cut corners, sleep well, eat well, and learn well. So that's what the Gemara is saying. Nighttime is created for sleep. Sleep well, learn in the morning. The reason why Hashem created the moon and the light that radiates from the moon at night is for the sake of learning, to allow us to learn through the light of the moon. The Tosfos says that it's not a machlekes here. He's referring to the longer nights of the year, the winter nights, in which case there's more time than just to allow for sleep. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda was speaking about the shorter nights of the year, which are primarily meant to be designated for sleeping. So people told Reb Zer, your Torah, your learning, your halachas are clear, are sharp. They complimented him. Amr lahu, you know why? Because I learned them by day, during daytime. These are my daytime halachas, my daytime learning. And therefore, they're sharp and clear. So this supports the Gemara earlier that a person is primarily meant to learn by day, where he has proper clarity, and his Torah will have the right sharpness. Amr le brate Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda's daughter turned to him. She saw he was exhausting himself. Le boy mar meinam purta. You don't need to sleep a bit? Amr la, so he said, hashta asu yoimi, da'arichik tini. Look, soon there are going to be days, da'arichik, long days, much time to sleep after a person passes from this world. Uktini. They're small. They don't accommodate Torah mitzvahs. So those days are going to come soon. V'neinum tuva. And we'll have lots of opportunity to sleep. Now is not the time to sleep. Now is the time to take full advantage, to learn, to daven. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Anan, we payale mami anan. We are daytime laborers. Person is primarily meant to learn by day, as the Gemara said earlier. Rav Achabar Yaakov, Yazif Apara. So, as Rashi explains, he had a set amount of learning that he designated for himself. Kach v'kach prakim b'yoyim. The Meir says that a person is meant to create an organized schedule for himself. I'm going to learn this and this much, by daf hayomi, a set amount. This keeps him organized, and Rav Achabar Yaakov had a set amount of learning. But as Rashi explains, sometimes he got preoccupied with his business, and he couldn't complete the allotment. So the Gemara says, Yosef upara. He would borrow and return it, meaning he wouldn't perhaps reach the allotment during the day, so he would pay it back at night, make up for what he missed. Omer Blazer, Haba min haderech, one who comes off the road, al yispalo shlosh yomim. For the first 3 days, he shouldn't daven. He doesn't have the proper concentration. Shenemar, we find in a pasuk that up until 3 days, a person's mental capacity is inhibited, his mind is a bit cloudy. V'akhabsim al nor habal achva, v'nachne sham yom shloisha v'avino ba'am v'goymer. So the pasuk uses the word v'avina. I understood, I paid attention, and that only happened after 3 days. So we see that bina, proper concentration, proper understanding, only comes later. So 3 days before we daven. Avod Shmuel, ki asi be'urcha le'masli t'lasayami. Likewise, Shmuel's father, after he came off a trip, for the first 3 days he wouldn't daven. Again, as we see in that pasuk, that for the first 3 days of following the trip, they had no bina, and therefore he must wait 3 days before he daven. Again, the Mepharshim will point out, the B'zman hazeh, don't have to worry about it. Our level of tefillah is not at that point that we're so affected by our trips. It says the Gemara, Shmuel le'matzli bebeisa de'isbei shichra. Shmuel would not daven in a home, in a room, where there was some shichra, some beer present. The smell would interfere with his concentration. Rav Papa le'matzli, Rav Papa wouldn't daven bebeisa de'isbei harsan. In a room, in a house, that there was harsan, this dish made of a fish, again, the smell would interfere with his kavanah. Oh, Rab Chanina, kol maspata b'yeinai. If a person allows himself to be appeased by drinking wine, he drinks a little wine, he's put at ease, and he forgives, he forgets. Yesh midas koine. This indicates that his mind is somewhat similar, kaviyachal, to Hashem. Shenemar, this is after the Mabel, it says, Vayorach Hashem es reach and Hashem smelled the scent of the carbon that Noach brought, and he was appeased. So a person allows himself to be appeased by having a good smell, a good drink. He's in somewhat similar to Hashem. A person, even when he drinks, doesn't lose himself. He contains himself. He remains discreet. Doesn't spill it all out. It's a good sign. It's a sign that he has strong intellectual capacity. Apparently, he has from the das of the 70 zakenim in the midbar. As the Vilgon explains, we know when Moshe Rabbeinu appointed the zakenim, so there were the 70 zakenim, then there was Eldad and Medad, who were expressing nevuah to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to die, and Yeshua is going to bring Klal Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. And he says that we assume that the 70 zakenim also were fully aware of that nevuah, but they kept quiet. They were discreet. They didn't speak about something that they felt was inappropriate to speak about Moshe's death in front of Moshe. So a person who contains himself, and even after drinking wine, he retains his confidentiality, he remains discreet. Apparently, he has strong intellectual capacity, and he is yeshvei midas and skenim, similar to he has from the das of those 70 skenim. Says the more yayin nitan bayin oisius. What is the gematria of the word yayin? Yud and Anon is 70. V'soid, likewise the word soid, a secret, nitan bayin oisius, has a gematria of 70. So generally, it's one or the other. Either you have yayin or you have soid. You can't have both together. Nichnas yayin. When yayin goes in, the person gets drunk, yotza soid. All the secrets get spilled out. But this fellow here, despite his drinking of wine, remains discreet and keeps it confidential, doesn't lose himself. So apparently he's a cut above the rest of the population. Yesh midas einskin. Rav Chanan, lo niver yain. Why did Hashem create this whole concept of wine, which brings so much trouble to the world? You know why? It was created elanachem avelim, to console mourners, give them to drink, and put them at ease. You know, the Gemara Ksuvas describes the whole procedure, all the cups of wine they would drink in the Beis Aval. So it has a good purpose. U'l'shalim schar l'rishayim. Likewise, to pay off the Rishayim for their mitzvahs that they did. This gives Hashem the opportunity to pay them back in this world. They have a good time, they drink. Shenemar tznu shecha la'oived v'goymer. So give shecha to the oived, this is the Rasha, and the rest of the pasuk is actually v'yayin l'mar nefesh, wine to those bitter ones, the avelim. Rav Chanan bar Papa. You want to know if a person really is experiencing true bracha in his house? This is the indication. Kol she'in yayin nishbach b'seich beisei kamayim. If a person does not have wine in abundance, spilling and flowing in his house like water, eina b'chlal bracha. You know, he hasn't really attained the high level of bracha. Shenemar uberach es lachmecha v'esmeimecha. Hashem is going to give a bracha in your bread and your water. What type of water are we speaking about? That's the Gemara Drash. The pasuk lists bread together with water. So we compare. Ma lechem shenikach b'kasef maser. Just as bread is something which you can purchase with maser sheni money in Yerushalayim. Af mayim. Likewise, the water mentioned in this pasuk apparently is also of that same ilk. Shenikach b'kasef maser can be purchased with maser money, and we know that one cannot purchase water with maser sheni money. We learned this earlier in the Masechta. So apparently, if the pasuk here is speaking about mayim that can be purchased with maser sheni, umayniu yain, apparently we're speaking about wine. Why does the pasuk refer to it as water? V'kakarle mayim, to teach you inishbach b'beisei kamayim ikabrach. What's the epitome of bracha? When this wine is like water, it spills, it flows in abundance. Then you know there's the highest level of bracha. V'loi, but otherwise loi, and he hadn't yet reached the highest level of bracha. Omer b'loi. You want to know the true character of a person? Go observe him during one of these three following scenarios. V'shloisha dvarim adam nikar. In 3 situations, you can really determine the true character of a person. B'koisai, when he has a drink, when he's drunk. See how he behaves himself. Ubekisai, how he treats money. Is he honest in his dealings? Ubekasai, when he's tested with something that irritates him. In his anger, you can tell the true character of a person. V'amrilei, some add a 4th, af b'schakai. Likewise, when he's having a laugh, you see whether it's contained, whether it's frivolous. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. The top line, Adam nikr, im haganu. You can tell if a person is a Adam Hagan, a proper person, b'koisai, im datim yishevas al v'yenai. If his mind is contained, even when he's after a drink of wine. B'kisai, k'shanoisiv v'noisim nei Adam. When he has business dealings with people, im be'emuna oisa, whether he's conducting his transactions with integrity and honesty. B'kasai, she'enik habdun yosim edai. He's not, he doesn't get too irritated. So these are true indicators of a person's character. You know, the Chavetz Chaim once had a visitor. There's a fellow who wrote a sefer about on the topic of kas, of savlanas, patience, and he brought it to the Chavetz Chaim for a haskam. Chavetz Chaim took a look at the sefer, nicely written sefer, and he turned to the machaber. He says, "You know what? Maybe come back a bit later." Sure, no problem. He left, came back a bit later. Again, the Chavetz Chaim tells him, "You know what? We'll come back tomorrow." Fine. Left, came back tomorrow. So a couple of times back and forth, the person got a little irritated. Like, what's going on here? And the Chavetz Chaim stopped. He says, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't give you haskama. I just needed to see what you're all about. If you want to write a sefer on kas, in order for you to have true siyata d'shmaya, that it influences the masses properly, you yourself have to be a person who's totally worked through in this inyan, this midah. You can't preach something which you yourself are not really perfect in, or close to perfect. Therefore, I wanted to test you. I wanted to test your character. If you're really a person who's tolerant, who's savlan, doesn't succumb to anger. And only then would I give you haskama. Now that I see, really, perhaps you need a bit more work, I'll give you some extra time, work it through. And when you feel that you've developed yourself to that point, that you're fitting to write a sefer on the topic, please come back. I'll be happy to give you haskama." You know, Chavetz Chaim himself, a tremendous savlan. There was a story that after his first Rebbetzin was niftas, he remarried, and that first Yom Tov Sukkot, Chavetz Chaim went out to the yard to build a sukkah. He had built it for the last 40 years in the same location in the backyard. So he built up the sukkah, and his new Rebbetzin comes out, and she takes a look at him and says, "You know, Rabbi Yisrael Meir, I think perhaps it would be better if the sukkah would be on the other side of the yard. It would just be more convenient." And without saying boo, he dismantled the sukkah and reassembled it up on the other side of the yard. Fine. Came back in to tell his Rebbetzin. She went out to take a look. Says, "You know what, Rabbi Yisrael Meir, I think the original location was right. You're right. That one's really the good place to do it." So, without hesitation, he says, "No problem." Took apart the sukkah again, rebuilt it all on the other side of the yard. It's true savlanis. No, Rav Moshe Feinstein, many stories of his tolerance, of his savlanis. Once he had bought a new shas, a new Shulzinger shas that had come out then. It was a beautiful deluxe shas at the time, and somehow a Talmud knocked over an inkwell, was bluing on the new shas. And Rav Moshe came over afterwards, and they were shocked. What he's going to do? And he took one look. His first reaction was a smile. He said, "I always liked the color blue." That was his reaction, just his natural response. He once found a bacher sitting in his office in the yeshiva. He walked into the office. He sees this bacher sitting in the Rav Moshe's office with the air conditioned full blast. Well, it's summer. Boy, he was looking for an air conditioned room, so he used Rav Moshe's office, and he's sitting there with the air conditioner. Moshe walks in, and without batting an eyelid, he says, "Oh, I'm sorry for disturbing." He walks right out, closes the door, goes back to his medrash. And somebody wants to ask Rav Moshe if this is natural. He was just born with it. How could he achieve such a level of patience? Perhaps it was something that he was born with, and he said just the opposite. He was actually born with a strong tendency for irritation and anger, and he worked through it. He worked and worked until he really transformed himself. So that's the Shloisha dvarim adam nikar. Okay, says the Gemara. Amar Vidam Amar Rav. Yisrael v'nachar pnimis. Yisrael b'chitzon. Let's go back to the halacha of schirus. The Gemara concluded earlier that we follow the shita of Rabbi Lezer and Yaakov. Schirus is required rental of the goy's usage rights. The chatzar is only required when we have two Yisraelim that require amongst themselves, to make an eruv. The oishim zelzeh. So if they have a goy with them, at that point we say they need to have schirus, and the point of schirus was to make it inconvenient for the Yisraelim to discourage living with the goy. Why specifically only two Yisraelim and not one Yisrael? The Gemara tells us because one Yisrael really fears for his life. He won't want to live with the goy regardless. It's not something that Chacham are concerned about. Two Yisraelim look after each other, they're more secure. It's something which is common practice, and therefore Chacham enacted the din of schirus to discourage that from taking place. Now let's get back to the story here in the Gemara. We have two chatzeres. We have one interior, one exterior. So let's say we have a Rosh Hashanah here, and we have one courtyard next to it, and then another one inside that one, which has access to Rosh Hashanah through the outer courtyard. Two separate courtyards, with a mechitza, but the inner one needs to walk through the outer one, the chitzah, to get Rosh Hashanah. Yisrael v'nachir b'pnimis. So in the pnimis you have a yid and a guy. Yisrael b'chitzayna. In the outer courtyard, meaning near the Rosh Hashanah, you have only one Yisrael. The question was, can the Yisrael who is living with the guy in the inner courtyard carry? B'masel fnei Rebbe. So this was a Masa Shaya, and they brought it to Rebbe. V'asa. He says no, he cannot carry. V'fnei Reb Chia v'asa. Likewise, it was presented to Reb Chia, and he said no. The Gemara is going to expound on the reason for this halacha. Yosef Rabba v'Rav Yosef. So Rabba and Rav Yosef were sitting b'shili pirkei der Sheshes. After the Rav Sheshes ended his drasha, v'yasser Rav Sheshes v'kamer. Rav Sheshes was sitting and explaining, looking for the basis for Rav saying that the Yisrael cannot carry in the chatzah. Now Rashi explains that the shaila was regarding the Yisrael in the outer chatzah. So Rav didn't allow the Yisrael in the outer chatzah to carry. We're going to see soon why. But it seems that they understood that the Isra was for the Yisrael living inside, with the Goy actually together. So Sheshes wants to know why. Why does Rav say it's us? So the Yasser of Sheshes Gomer, and he was saying like this: Kaman Amra Rav L'Shmait. In accordance with who did Rav issue that halach? To Rav Meir. Apparently, he's following Rav Meir. Rav Meir holds that even when there's one Yisrael living with a Goy, he can't carry. Rav Meir is Chayish L'Miuta. He's concerned that perhaps even one Yid will decide to live with a Goy. Therefore, we're concerned about that as well. Want to discourage it, and therefore schirus is required. So apparently, Rav, who doesn't let the Yisrael living with the Goy inside, in the interior chatzah, doesn't let him carry, apparently he's following Rav Meir's sheet. Karchish Rav Reishi. So Rabbi nodded in approval. Yeah, apparently that's the pshat. Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef responded, how can you say that? Tzrei Gavri, Rav Rabban. Two such great people, Litu by Milsa, should make such a mistake? That can't be the pshat. Ikar Rav Meir. Because if Rav would be basing his halach on Rav Meir, that even one Yisrael cannot carry when he's living with a Goy, Lama li Yisrael b'chitzayna. So why did we need the Yisrael in the outer courtyard to bring the total of Yisrael into two? We only need one Yisrael. Perhaps you'll say, this was the fact, this was the story. True, even one Yisrael with a Goy would be a problem. It so happens that here you had a Yisrael in each courtyard. But not that is the reason for the Issa. If that's what you'll say, that can't be. Because they actually asked Rav himself, Pnimi b'mkoyim mau. What is the halacha regarding the Pnimi, the Yisrael living inside? Can he carry in the interior courtyard? Certainly he could. So he himself responded that he's allowed to because apparently one Yisrael with the Goy is not a problem. So Rav Yosef was challenging their pshat. You can't say that Rav is based on Rav Meir, that one Yisrael with a Goy is a problem. Rav himself said that the Yisrael living with the Goy in the inner courtyard is mutter. So apparently, we're speaking about the Yisrael living outside, in the Chitzoyna. And somehow, we're going to get to that soon, somehow, since they're walking through his courtyard, etc., we'll get to that soon, we consider it as if there's two Yisrael. Let's see why. It says more of El Michael Razam Yaakov. So what are you going to say? The Rab was following Razam Yaakov. And that's why he says that the Yisrael living with the guy inside, since it's only one Yisrael, it's okay. The question was whether the Yisrael in the Chitzayna can carry. Over there he can't. So following Razam Yaakov, it requires two Yisrael. How does that make things better? Ha'amar ad sheyu shnei Yisraelim oisen zalzeh. He requires two Yisraelim to live in a situation where they're oiser zalzeh. Let's say they're living together in the same chatzar. They interfere with each other, right? They need to make an eruv. So Rabbi Yehuda says that when a guy is present, when there are two Yisraelim, he interferes with them. They need to make schiras. That's only when the two Yisraelim are actually living in a situation where they require each other to make an eruv. The oiser zalzeh. But if there's one Yisrael living in one chatzar, in the pnimi, and another Yisrael living in the chitzayna, they're not oiser zalzeh. They're totally unrelated, disconnected from each other. They don't have to make an eruv with each other, because the Yisrael living inside is merely walking through. He has pedestrian rights through the chatzar chitzayna. He's not actually living there. There's no requirement for them to take an eruv with each other. So even according to Blazer and Yaakov, who says when you have two Yisraelim, they make aser, and over here you have two Yisraelim. You don't really have two Yisraelim. There's one inside, one outside. They're not connected to each other. Says Gemara, Elok Rabbi Kiva. Apparently, following Rabbi Kiva's shita, the Amar, Regal Materis B'Mkaima, Isera Shlem B'Mkaima. So Rabbi Kiva is speaking about a case where you have two courtyards, two adjacent courtyards, and you have people living in the inner courtyard who need to walk through the outer courtyard to get to Rishus Harabim. Now, the members of both courtyards made their own independent areas, which allows them to carry throughout their area. The problem is that the residents of the Chatzar Pnimis, of the inner courtyard, need access. Going to be walking through the outer courtyard. The question is access, is walking through considered like residency? And do they need to be included in the Eruv of the Chatzar Chitzayna due to the fact that they're walking through there? So according to Rabbi Kiva, the answer is yes. He says, Regel Amateres B'Mkaima. Regel means the person that's walking through, who has walked through rights. Even though he's mutter b'mkaima, he's allowed to carry in his own place, in his own chatzar. He made an eruv with his fellow chatzar members. He interferes. He makes isser when he comes out of his place and walks through this area. Walking through rights must be reckoned with. And he's considered like a resident of the outer courtyard. It must be included in the eruv. So likewise in our case, the fact that the Yisrael is coming out of his chatzar through the chatzar chitzayna, that is considered like residency. He must be included in the eruv. He must make an eruv with the Yisrael living outside, and that's why it's aser. That's why it's aser for the Yisrael living in the chatzar chitzayna to carry. Says the more, if that's the case, then skip the guy, take him out of the equation. La mali nachri, I feel Yisrael nami. Even if there will be no nachri in the vicinity, the fact that there's Yisrael inside, coming through the outer chatzar, that itself is ample reason for an eruv. So why do we need to present the case with the Yisrael, with a guy? Amar Avuna B'Eder Yeshua L'Olam K'Rab Lezer Ben Yaakov. I'll explain to you why. We're following Rab Lezer Ben Yaakov Shita, who says schiris is only required when there are two Yisraelim that need to make an eruv with each other. So if a guy is there, they can't activate their eruv. They need to rent it from the guy. Ukra Rabbi Kiva, and we're following Rabbi Kiva's shita, who says that pedestrian rights must be reckoned with. They're considered to be like residency. So the fact that Rabbi Kiva holds that the fellow inside walking through the outside chatzar is considered as though he's living there, now we view these two Yisraelim as though they're living together and they need to make an eruv with each other. They're oisim zeh al zeh. And the fact that we have two Yisraelim that need to make an Erev, and there is a Goy in the equation as well, now we have a problem. Now we must make Schiris. The question was, forget about the Goy. The Yisraelim themselves have a problem, they need to make a Schiris. We're speaking about Kanshi Eruvin. They made an Erev. So the two Yisraelim amongst themselves took care of their situation. The problem is only because there's a Goy here. Who the Asir? That's why it's Asir. But if there would be no Goy here, there wouldn't be a problem, because the Yisraelim already made an Erev with each other. At least they tried to. But the fact that there's a Goy here in the equation, that complicates matters. And they can't make an Erev amongst each other unless they are first Soicher from the Goy. Boy minei Rabbi Lezer mirav. So Rabbi Lezer asked the following question of Rav. We have the same situation, one Chatzar inside, one Chatzar outside, but the equation will be switched around. Yisrael v'nachar b'chitzayin. In this case we have Yisrael and the Goy living on the outside, Yisrael b'pnimis, and Yisrael living on the inside. What is the halacha here? Why would I differentiate? So again, the point of the requirement for Schiris to be made when you have two Yisraelim in specific is because they're not concerned about their safety. There's two people there. They look after each other. They feel secure. And therefore, we're concerned that this will happen. We don't want them to live with a Goy. Therefore, we require Schiris. The question is whether in this scenario, Schiris will be required. Do they feel safe with this arrangement? When there's a Yisrael living by himself inside, and the Yisrael and the Nachar on the outside. Perhaps it's different than the previous case, where Schiris is required because they feel secure. The Gemara will explain. What is the halacha here? Some Tama in the earlier case, where the Yisrael was living with the guy inside, and the other Yisrael outside. Some Tama mishum the Shchiach, the dire. It's common for the Yisrael to live with the guy in this manner. The mirsas nachi, because the guy is afraid. The Savar, he figures hashta as Yisrael. I can't harm my neighbor in the interior chatzah because the Yisrael living in the chitzayna perhaps will show up, v'amarli, and will confront me. Yisrael davagabach heicha. Where's your neighbor? And I can't tell him, well, he left, he went shopping. I would have seen him. I live outside. He didn't come through my chatzah. So in that case, the Yisraelim feel secure. And it's common for them to live in this manner, and therefore Schiris is required. As opposed to this case, where we have the Yisrael living inside, and we have the Yisrael with the Goy in the Chitzayna. In this case, perhaps Yisrael is afraid to live with the Goy, because if the Goy should harm the Yisrael, he'll have a way to defend himself. If the other fellow from the inside comes out and says, where's my friend? He'll say, look, he just went out shopping. But in the second case, Aminale, the Goy figures, I could just tell the Yisrael, Nafak Azle, my friend here left town. He went out. Sure, you didn't see him because you're all the way inside. So in this case, perhaps the Goy is not afraid to harm the Yisrael. The Yisrael is afraid to live with the Goy, and therefore there's no need to make Schiris. That's one side of the coin. A Dilma, perhaps. Even in this case, the Yisrael feels secure because the Goy is afraid. Mirsa is afraid. The Savar hashtas Yisrael v'chazali. I can't do anything to the Yisrael because perhaps hashtas Yisrael, the fellow living in the Chatzar Pnimis, perhaps will show up any second v'chazali, and he'll see me doing something wrong. So the Goy is afraid, and the Yisrael feels secure, and therefore Schiris is required to discourage this type of living. So that was the question: is it or is it not? Amar lei. So Rav responded, "Tein lechacham yechkamoid." This is a pasuk in Mishlei. Give wisdom to a wise man and let him enhance on the wisdom. Meaning, just as in the earlier case it's aser, likewise in this case it's aser. We're concerned that the Yisrael will feel secure with the Goy with this arrangement due to the fact that there are two Yisrael in the vicinity. Therefore, Schiris is required. Says the Gemara, Reish Lakish v'Talmidei Rav Chanina. There's a story with Reish Lakish and the Talmidim of Rav Chanina. Iklu lau pundak. They visited this hotel where there were two Yisraelim living in the Chatzar and a Goy. This Goy was a renter. He was a tenant. V'lo have a seicher. But the tenant, the Goy, was actually not present on Shabbos. Now we learned earlier that when a Goy is not there on Shabbos, we don't have to reckon with him. But they were concerned that perhaps he's going to surface on Shabbos, and then they'll have problems. So he wanted to arrange some sort of schiris, but the tenant wasn't there. V'hava masker, but the landlord was there. Amru, so they pondered. Ma'u lemeger minei. Can we do schiras from the landlord? Or do we need the actual tenant, the person who's actually living there? It says the Gemara like this. When the law of the land is that the landlord doesn't have the ability to evict his tenant before his time is up, then there's certainly no question. We can't rent from the landlord. He doesn't have a foothold on this property. He's not considered to be the owner. The question will be when the landlord does have the legal ability to evict a tenant. What's the halacha? Since he can do that, we can rent from the landlord as well. He's considered like the owner. Perhaps. Bottom line is, at the present moment in time, he hadn't yet evicted him. So he's not really the true resident. So what's the halacha? Can we rent from the landlord or not? The Rish Lakish responded to them, Niska, you know what? Let's rent from the landlord. Rashi says, when it comes to Eruvin, we have a safek, let's go proceed. And then we'll ask if we did right. We'll get to our Rabbi Seinu in the south, Nishalan, we'll ask them if we proceeded correctly. So they rented, and then they went to ask, Osu Shailu Lerefes. They came and they asked Lerefes. He told them, yes, Yofe, Asisem Shesachartem. You did a proper rental, you were able to rent from the landlord as well. Says more another story. Rab Chanina bar Yosef, Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Asi. So these three, Iklu Lal Punduk, they went to this, stayed in this hotel on Shabbos. The Asa Nachri, Mari, the Punduk b'Shabbat. What happened was that the guy wasn't there on Erev Shabbos. So they made an Erev amongst themselves. The Yidden made an Erev. But on Shabbos, the guy showed up. The Asa Nachri, the guy, Mari, the Punduk, the owner of the Punduk, showed up with Shabbat. Now they had a problem. There's a guy here. Amru, so they said, Ma'u lemeger minei. Can we right now rent from him? Can we rent on Shabbos? Or does this have to take place before Shabbos? What was the equation? Soichikim Arav Dami is renting like making an Erev. Ma'am Arav Boyjim, just as an Erev has to be established before Shabbos because it gets activated Ben Hashmashis. Afseichim Boyjim, likewise when he rents, it has to be done before Shabbos. Oidilmo perhaps, Soichikim Evato Rishus Dami. Soich is not so serious. It's like Bittul Rishus. A person who forgets to take part in the Erev, so he just relinquishes his rights and gives it up to the other members of the Chatzar. That's not a positive feature. It's not an establishment of anything, just relinquishing. So perhaps Schiris is treated in the same way, just getting rid of the guy, so to speak. He's buying him out. And he's turning him into a guest. So it's not something positive that needs to be established, and that doesn't need to be done before Shabbos. Renting is like bittul. Just like a bittul can happen even on Shabbos. Likewise, renting could also take place on Shabbos. Rav Chanina bar Yosef Amar Niskar, he says, yeah, we can rent even on Shabbos. Rav Asi Amar Loy Niskar, we can't rent on Shabbos. Amar Rav Chia bar Abbas, Rav Chia bar Abba turned to him, he said, Nismech al Devar Zakein v'Niskar. Let's rely on the words of the elder of Rav Chanina bar Yosef, and let's rent. And indeed they rented. Then they came to ask the Shaila. Also, Shaila Rabbi Yehuda. They came to ask Rabbi Yehuda whether they acted properly. Amar Lance, he told them yes. Yafe asisem shesochartem. Your rental is perfectly fine, perfectly valid. You acted correctly. Schiris can be done even on Shabbos. Okay, let's take a short chazor of today's daf. We began with Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah saying, I could defend Klal Yisrael on account of their lack of kavanah by tefillah because Klal Yisrael is compared to a shikar throughout the time of Gullus when they don't have the ability to properly concentrate. Tefillah requires concentration. When a person's mind is not really miyushav, he doesn't have proper presence of mind, he's not meant to daven. Likewise, the first 3 days after a trip is not a time to daven. The Gemara says Torah as well requires clarity. A person is meant to primarily learn throughout the day. Good weather is conducive for good learning. The Gemara tells us a person's character can be truly tested. B'koisoi, b'kisoi, b'kasoi. Some say b'schakai as well. We learned about those two chatzeres next to each other. And we have two Yisrael with a guy, no matter which configuration we have, schiris is required. The Gemara concluded that you could do schiris even from the landlord, and we concluded that schiris can take place even on Shabbos itself.